Hey, I've seen this one. This is a classic.
Brave New World takes the Captain America franchise into a whole new era.
Surprise, motherfucker!
Now that Sam Wilson has become Cap, he learns that the government he's working for isn't so trustworthy and goes on a rogue journey to expose the truth. A journey which includes dealing with an assassin sent to kill him and trusting a widow agent showing up to help him and working together with a new normal guy sidekick. And if he doesn't uncover this invisible enemy pulling the strings quickly enough, then wait a minute, this is just the Winter Soldier again. Winter Soldier at home. So yeah, Captain America Brave New World lands with a big belly flop. It was supposed to return Marvel to its glory by being more grounded after all the dumb cosmic stuff, but of course it didn't. Instead, it managed to poison even this area of the MCU that used to be the best, as a result of which more terrible reviews were gained and more box office lows were created.
Damn, nobody saw that.
And as for the reason why audiences did not care about this movie, there are many. Too many in too many areas to comprehensively summarize without turning into CinemaSins. But looking for the biggest core flaw where most of the problems are born, it's the fact that this film cannot warrant its own existence enough for anyone to really need to see it. The fact that it's a terrible, horrible sequel, one of the worst in the MCU. Maybe not one of the worst movies in the MCU, but one of the worst sequels. See, no matter how well Brave New World could have shined in certain areas, it wouldn't really help because it makes a couple cardinal sequel sins that no sequel can afford to make. The story and the characters feel lackluster because they're inferior versions of the past. The franchise elements feel disappointing and pointless because they're not done anything with. And all the dynamics creating the events feel vanilla because they've already been played out in that way. In other words, this movie is an embodiment of Winter Soldier at home. So today, let's go through Brave New World to see why that is. What sequel pitfalls does it fall into to ensure its own failure, and how can we avoid them? How to avoid making an at-home version of a previous installment. The first at-home sequel issue here is that the story and its characters are lesser versions of their past counterparts. With the characters, for example, you can notice that most people in the movie play discounted versions of previous roles. The assassin is a blood-hungry killer sent to take down Sam with rifles and knives, just like Winter Soldier, except with nowhere near the same level of development. He has no emotional connection to the hero, no cool mask or backstory or mystery, or even a motivation outside of making money.
He agreed to pay me double to take you out.
He's just a new assassin guy attacking the hero, and then he's immediately beat up and cut from the movie. I mean, even the organization he works for, Serpent, is much like Hydra, except nowhere near as real or meaningful. It's mostly just a spoken name of an evil Hydra-like organization.
He's the head of Serpent.
The same, but less. The president's agent is an ex-Widow warrior, just like Black Widow, except she sucks. She's boring and she gets no development for her skills or personality or journey outside of verbal mentions.
She was born in Israel and trained in the Red Room. She's ex-Widow.
And no one cares. She's just a new kick-ass Black Widow there to look tough and kick-ass in one scene. The same, but less. The sidekick is a trustworthy guy helping Sam on his journey, much like Sam did with Cap, except he's so shallow and forgettable and out of place that I don't even know why he's in the movie. He's just some guy. He seems to belong more in a WandaVision comedy as an annoying neighbor or something.
You can tell Gramps about me? I'm the new Falcon.
Not as a Captain America sidekick in a Captain America thriller. Same role, but a lesser version.
Oh my God, no way, yeah, yeah.
I mean, you could even argue that Sam is a lesser version of Cap, because the actor doesn't have the same charisma or emotional talent, and the character isn't as entertaining or interesting, and even his skills are way more inconsistent. Like, they say that Sam is different because he didn't take the super serum like Cap.
Should've took the serum. Like Steve, like you.
But at the same time, his bones are strong enough to take a hit from the Hulk, and his body is resilient enough to survive an explosion that rips concrete. So, suspension of disbelief is a bit tougher this time around. I'm not gonna say Sam is a discount version of Cap, cause I don't wanna get in trouble, and he does have his own journey and skills that are quite different from Cap, sure. But the fact is that no matter how great of a Cap Sam could be, nobody wants to see Sam Wilson's Cap more than a Cap. He is Cap, but less. No Cap.
What made me think I could follow that?
This isn't your fault.
To be fair, some characters here are their own, at least to an extent, while others do carve out their own place, like how Harrison Ford as the secretive guy in charge stands out more than his predecessor. But mostly, the characters here play the same roles as their predecessors in a lesser way, which cannot produce better results.
Let me put it to you this way. I like this.
Same with the story. We open with Cap dropping into a hostage situation, except this time it's a random place with random hostages who hold no larger meaning. There's a 1v1 fight at the hostage place, except way less memorable and against a no-name opponent. There's an ambush in traffic, except now with no build-up and in a remote place with no civilians, and even the fight is less cool. The hero locates a secret bunker on a map and goes there to find exposition, except this time it's more straightforward and less intimidating. Like, just throw the shield at the guy. The hero gets hunted by his own side, except now none of the hunters are proper characters. There's mind control again, except now it has no development or logic and is just nonsense.
Mind control.
Mind control.
I could go on, but the point is that the movie redoes a past journey in a lesser way. And a sequel like that can never work. It's an impossible situation. If you use the same equation with a lesser multiplier, the result is always less. The only way it can be more is if the multiplier is bigger or if you make a whole new equation. And the reason this equation fails is because in too many parts it is the Winter Soldier minus X. A discounted version. The second at-home sequel problem here is that familiar franchise elements are thrown in without doing something with them to utilize their value.
What are you doing?
Nothing.
For example, this movie is the introduction of adamantium into the main realm of the MCU, the indestructible Marvel metal that can now be mined. And although its inclusion at first can sound cool, it ultimately isn't worth anything because nothing is done with it. In the beginning, there's a stolen canister that Cap goes to get back, which later is said to be adamantium, and then there's a new Cold War because everyone wants the adamantium mine for themselves. But the metal itself is never really present or relevant. We never see it being used or even see it at all outside of on a screen. We never go into the mine to witness how it's extracted or how difficult that is or what makes adamantium special as a metal compared to vibranium. Nothing would change if the celestial mine was actually vibranium. The movie just says there's adamantium and expects you to jump from excitement because it's adamantium, yippee! Another great example is the dead Celestial left in the ocean from Eternals. In some sense, its inclusion is a very positive thing. Firstly, because now we can finally stop seeing that same recycled tweet about nobody in the MCU acknowledging this dude sticking out of the ground. And secondly, because the dogfighting sequence taking place around it is pretty cool. Yes, it has a lot of the same vibes as Iron Man, but it still does enough to earn its place. But once again, the Celestial itself is done nothing with, it's just kinda there in the backdrop. It is said to be the source of the adamantium, but we never go in to see where the adamantium comes from or what side effects there are in mining the Celestial. The Celestial may as well have been a mountain and it would serve the same purpose. We would fight around it the same way and it could be said to be the source of adamantium just the same. Nothing in practice would change. And so, when you include franchise elements in your sequel, you must make use of the value to earn their inclusion. If you want to feature the dead Celestial, then do something with it that only it makes possible. For instance, if the mining caused it to start moving like a dead fish, a bit like happens in God of War, then it would deserve its place in the movie. But if it's just CGI there in the background to the point where it could have been anything, not so much. Now, I'm not saying that the Celestial should come to life or anything, because that would probably take too much focus away from this movie's story. But my point is that its specific value must be utilized. You can't just have it. Getting a Lamborghini has a point only if you drive it, right? And a big sin for this movie, along with modern Hollywood in general, is that it relies too much on nostalgia and pre-established value alone. Oh look, here's Black Panther's armor that we don't really do anything new with. Oh look, here's mind control again, and we don't really even make it logical because you already know mind control exists. Oh look, here's that guy from the first Hulk movie that you don't remember and who we don't do anything memorable with here either. Get excited. The filmmakers seem to think that the inclusion of something with pre-existing value by default creates value, which is not true. I'd much rather have a new, properly developed villain instead of this shallow caricature from the past. I'd much rather see Sam's technology be developed further instead of using Black Panther's technology the same way it's already been used. Nostalgia can be effective, yes, but alone it does not go far. If you want to use familiar franchise elements, you need to identify what makes them special and then do something new with that specialty, like how Civil War dove deeper into the mind control from Winter Soldier. And if you can't do that, then maybe don't include the element at all and save it for another movie that can. Because the worst case scenario is that you ruin that potential value. For years we have waited for this franchise element to be taken to the next step, and now it turns out to be a boring misstep. Not a great sequel. The third at-home sequel problem here is that the dynamics of characters and relationships remain pretty unchanged from before and thus flavorless. If you look at Sam's journey, for example, you can find that it's quite familiar. Now that he's Captain America, he needs to work with authority as per his role, but he's beginning to see that authority can't be trusted and he goes rogue to weed out corruption. That's literally the journey of Cap in Winter Soldier, which means that the audience can already see through it, through Sam's path and relationships. The guy in charge seems to be honorable, but ultimately ends up being a liar who needs to be taken down. Yeah, we already knew. The ex-Widow agent seems to be at odds with Sam, but ultimately becomes an ally. Yeah, we already knew. The sidekick seems to be Sam's trustworthy friend and remains so to the very end. Well, yeah. Like, the character dynamics that create the content are the same as before, which allows the audience to be steps ahead. And when the audience is steps ahead and just waiting for what they already know is coming based on the past, you're in big trouble.
Do we have eyes on Wilson?
He left the base a few hours ago with Joaquin Torres. They're off grid.
Well, I don't want a variable out there that I can't control. Get a team, pick him up, bring him in.
Yeah, I know.
To be fair, there are variations in these dynamics and their places in the story. Ross, for instance, is not the same as before. He doesn't send the assassin, and he's not part of a hostile group like Pierce, nor is he as much of a direct antagonist for the hero as he was in the first Hulk movie. But the overall course of his dynamic plays out the same way. He's the guy in charge who we're supposed to trust, but due to his secrets ultimately can't, just like Pierce. He's an ally of the hero until he has a falling out with him, and eventually they clash and kinda have to accept each other's existence, just like Ross with Banner in the first Hulk movie. The specifics and the timeline of the relationship can vary a bit, but ultimately it works in the same anticipatable way. You know, last time it was Ross's poor handling of an employee that led to the creation of a CGI monstrosity that the hero had to fight. This time, it's Ross's poor handling of an employee movie that leads to the creation of a CGI monstrosity that the hero has to fight. Now the CGI happens to be him and more red, yes, but in practice the dynamic and its outcome is so similar that you can see it coming a mile away.
Why visit a black site in the middle of nowhere?
I order you to stop!
To conduct these
And so, when you use characters and relationships familiar from before, you need to twist and update them to keep them fresh, like I talked about in my Pirates 2 sequel video. Captain Jack used to be a carefree go-getter, and now he fears for his life and acts out of panic as he flees.
Run!
Norrington used to represent order and sophistication, and now he has to act like a pirate to get his life back. Will and Liz were trying to get close to each other, and now they're pushing each other away. We don't know if Will will choose his dad over Liz because their dynamic hasn't been in that place before. It's a new flavor for a familiar meal, a path without a pre-known destination, and exciting to watch. That's what this movie should have done as well, shuffled the deck. What if the Widow agent is no longer our ally at the end? What if the sidekick is not as purely selfless and good as we first think? How can the familiar cards be played in a new way? The Winter Soldier was great because it completely upended Cap's world. He used to be a soldier at war fighting the most obvious opponent, and now suddenly he's in a grey world where it's not clear who or what he's even supposed to be fighting. It's the same character, but the dynamics of his journey are uncharted territory for him.
Why was he there? He told me not to trust anyone.
That's a key difference between a sequel that deserves to be made and seen and a sequel that's made for money and flops because people don't really need to see it since they've already done so. I don't need to see Brave New World because I've already seen Winter Soldier and Hulk and know how it will play out. I don't need to see Winter Soldier Hulk at home.
Hey, I've seen this one. This is a classic.